This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast from the Sports Gambling Podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with code GOLFSGPN to get $1,000 in credits. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost. Get up to $750 in cash back rewards each month when you sign up at edgeboost.bet and use the promo code SGPN. If you're looking for all of our picks and podcasts in one place, download the SGPN app wherever you get apps. So go to the App Store and do that today. And then finally, DraftKings. When it comes to college basketball and March Mania, one thing is for sure, that nothing's for sure. Upsets, buzzer beaters, Cinderella's advancing, top seeds going home early. It's all going to happen. Bet the unexpected every upset every day with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. First time, here's something special for you. New DraftKings customers, bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers. Get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas. 21 age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 160 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Okay, we're back. Houston Open. We have a few things to address. We have some visual problems. There's no background. I don't know what's going on with that, but our graphics guy is currently not here at the moment, and we got content to deliver, so we're going to deliver that content. But I got a very special guest all the way from Las Vegas, Wes Reynolds. He is a staple in the VSiN community. He's been doing the golf game for a long time. So Wes, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you about the Houston Open. Let's get into it.
Yeah, Matt, great to be with you on the pod.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the golf betting space and also with VSiN in Vegas as a whole?
With VSiN for about a little bit over 6 years. I've been doing golf betting and a variety of other betting for probably, 15 plus years off and on, mainly more on, but had a couple different career paths where betting was a little bit frowned upon. So I, had to be a little bit discreet about that, but have been doing this for a long time.
Right. So when you're betting like a weekly golf tournament, what is your? I know everyone's different in terms of, and I'll talk about my style. What's your style of betting? Are you outrights? Are you positionals, matchups? What do you like to do?
A little bit of everything. I start from an outright perspective, or if you're overseas, if we had each way betting more prevalent over here in the United States, I think we would certainly like that. So we're jealous of our global counterparts, but that's what I kind of look at. I look at, obviously, the recent form. You got to look some weeks at course form. It's more predictive than others. Like it's more predictive at Augusta or someplace like that than it is at other venues. But I look at that, try to match it up with the market and see, okay, is this price about the right range, or is it a little bit off? Is there value here? Or are we getting kind of cheated on the price? Then I might have to take a pass. So I start from that perspective. And then ordinarily my positionals, my placement markets, which I usually do on Wednesday when a tournament starts on Thursday, just on any average week. More often than not, I'll have like some of the same positionals that I would in terms of outrights. And then some guys, that don't have the outright win equity, I'll be like, okay, top 20, what do we call Tommy Fleetwood, top 20 Tommy, is that he's usually going to get there. So that's when I look at that. And then from a matchup perspective, like I think last week, Matt, is a really good example for what we had down there at the Valspar, when these matchups moved a lot more than normal in the market simply because of the draw bias. So that's why I kind of wait and do the matchups last, because I want to see the weather. More often than not totally exclusive here, but more often than not, you're going to get the wind a little bit more benign, a little bit less of a factor in the AM tee times than you are in the afternoon tee times. Even though that draw bias probably got a little bit overplayed, I think it was there, but it wasn't there like the market. And I think maybe some of us that, kind of followed suit didn't really see that come to fruition. So matchups are what I do a little bit last. And usually I like to do full tournament matchups. I don't,
100%.
I don't.
They're too volatile. I
Yeah.
don't do well with them in the
Yeah.
rounds either.
Yeah, I don't typically do round by round. If I do a round by round, it's usually like fourth round because then I've
Mhm.
got some data to go on. Then we've got some numbers, and then we can kind of look at what's really volatile, which is putting. You know, you're going to have a guy
Mhm.
gained 6 strokes putting for round 3. Well, he's probably not going to do that more often than not in round 4. So, you know, I try to keep those at least to a bare minimum because that's a good way to start yourself in the hole. I think for a
Right.
tournament, if you're doing a lot of round by round stuff. And that's why with first round leader markets, I haven't done a lot with that, even though that's been pretty lucrative for some friends of mine that bet
Mhm.
golf and some other people in the space. And it just because I already have a full outright board. So it's like, oh man, if these FRLs don't get there, then I'm already in the hole and I'm already scrambling to make money. And that could sometimes force you mentally and in your psyche to really bet, you know, something that you
Too
wouldn't.
much is yeah, and, like, it's
Yeah.
not like your outrights are guaranteed to come through. I mean, we know they don't come often. They come every so many weeks. I was wondering,
Mhm.
when you're doing your outright cards, do you have a specific, like, ratio you're trying to hit? Like, personally, I'm trying to hit 1 outright every 7 weeks. I have, like, a 7-to-1 ROI on my outrights, and I proportionate the top guys, I bet more to return the same number as the bottom guys. So no matter if I
Mhm.
hit a 250-1 or a 7-to-1 guy, I'm winning the same amount. I was wondering how you do your outrights.
No, I do it the same. I do proportion. I think, you know, for instance, let's just, you know, give numbers for the people that might be kind of new. Let's say a unit for you is $100, right? So if you're betting $100 on a 10-to-1 guy, then you're going to bet half of that on a 20-to-1 guy because it's
Right.
double the odds. So it's going to be essentially the same payout. So I do that proportionally. My goal, and this is when I'm more doing more global tours too. I haven't done as much DP World Tour this year, but usually that's what I would do, and then a few random live events. My goal is to hit like one a month. Uh,
Okay.
uh, you know, but and knowing that I'm probably not going to hit many in the fall, just because I don't have a lot of time, because we're
Right.
all knee deep in football, in
Mhm.
NFL and college football, and then you got the World Series going on. Then basketball is going to start. Like that late October, early November, man, is fun because it's
A
busy and
lot.
there's a lot of activity, but it's also overwhelming in the
Oh, for
fact
sure.
that you've got all this stuff going on. It's like, oh crap, man, basketball is going on. I haven't done any of my college basketball prep. I haven't done any of my NBA prep or whatever it is because you're into football and you're into golf and into the baseball playoffs. So yeah, time is your most valuable resource. I always believe
100%.
that. I know that sounds cliche, but I always believe that time is your most valuable resource. It's like, yeah, I do all these other sports, man. I'd bet every damn thing that you put out there. I'd bet, you know, ants racing each other on the sidewalk if I had 36 hours a day to handicap it. But unfortunately we don't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I also bet all the tours too. I'm doing DP. We added LPGA to our site this year, and obviously live too. So I'm doing all the tours. It's a lot of fun. I'm just strictly golf. So let's get into this Houston Open. Obviously, a golf course that we are used to seeing on actually the last few years, hasn't been around for a long time. But Memorial Park, big boy track, a golf course where you want to hit the ball far, and it's a golf course where you can somewhat get away with being a little bit loose off the tee in some spots. So, is there anything you're looking in terms of a style of golf for this week, or just in terms of Memorial Park as a whole?
Yeah, when you look at that odds board, it is Houston. We have a problem, and the problem is we have 1, 2 in the world that are chalk, and those guys are tough to beat sometimes.
Yeah,
But inevitably, we try to beat them. You know, I'm not going to take in. I don't want to dismiss this event as a warm up for the Masters because it is an event with a lot of history, but. You have two guys at the top. This is their last appearance for the Masters. I'm sure if you're teeing it up, you want to win, but
yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna forego. Just a spoiler alert. I'm not gonna bet either of those two guys, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, 1, 2 in the world, necessarily to win. In terms of, I guess, style of golfer, I'm looking back on where we've been since we've been here in 2020 at Memorial Park. Because remember, this used to be at the Golf Club of
Golf Club
Houston, and then
Houston.
this used to be at Woodlands
Mhm.
before that. So some of that data is a little bit old if you're looking at that. So you want to really look 2020 and on. So Carlos Ortiz, Jason Kokrak, Tony Finau, Stephen Jaeger won for me here actually last year when Scotty missed that about 4.5 footer on 18. It's like I took down Scotty Scheffler once, but he took me down about 5 or 6 other times. So I got some catching up to do. But I think approach is important. I think it always is, even though these greens are pretty darn big, about 7,000 square feet. And you've got a lot of undulations, though. You've got a lot of runoff areas. So sometimes you'll hit good shots and they won't stick. They very much try to set it up, I think, a little bit like Augusta. So approach, especially from 200 out, I think is very important because this is the second longest non-major course on the PGA Tour. Of course, Torrey Pines in San Diego is the longest at about 7,700 yards on that South course. But this is a bigger course, so I think you got to look at bombers, and you saw some of those guys last year. We know the guys in contention, Jaeger and Scheffler, Finau, Alejandro Tosti.
Yep.
Yeah, they were right in the mix, so they bomb it out there.
Yep.
So I do think you want to look at distance while not ignoring good drives. I don't think that you want to put too much premium on accuracy for what you mentioned, Matt. The rough is only about like 1.25 inches now. Yeah. So there's not a lot of hazards. There's not a lot of very few bunkers, not a lot of water. I think on only 4 holes on this course. So that's something I wanted to look at. I looked at a little bit around the green. I think you want to put a little premium on this though this week because it's about maybe 30% to a third of the strokes are around the green because you're going to hit greens and the balls are going to roll off. You know, there's those false fronts, there's the runoff areas. So you're going to need a kind of a tidy short game. And then this could be a putting contest. I just looked at the putting data because some weeks your team no putt. And then some weeks your team, okay, I got to include the putting, especially if you get like a change in surface. Like if you've had guys on Bermuda and then all of a sudden they go to POA or something like that. But if you look at the recent numbers for the putting, Jaeger was third here in the field. Finau was second the year before. Kokrak was third. Ortiz was fifth. And these guys are gaining well over 6+ strokes for the overall tournament just on the greens. And the scoring has been in the low to mid teens. So that tells you putting's going to be a lot more important here this week than maybe ordinarily it would be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is one of the rare, in my opinion, driver putter golf courses where you have to really be a guy who can spike in either of those categories. And we do see a stroke gain approach get there in terms of the winner on the leaderboard, but I believe that stroke gain approach is set up via great driving. Like I don't want a guy who's just a great iron player who can spike with the irons. I want a guy who is giving himself good middle iron, good wedge looks because of the good driving. So I really think it's a derivative of where you are off of the tee. So yeah, that's the golf course, Memorial Park. It's always a fun one. We get some good finishes here. Let's get into the odds board. Obviously, we're both going to pass on Scotty and Rory. If you had to pick one of them in a matchup, just quickly, who would you pick this week, Scotty or Rory?
Yeah, this is interesting though because Rory I think is in better form. But Scotty has the experience here. Like I think Scotty, and I don't want to, misconstrue things when I said, this is kind of a warm-up event. This is one that Scotty wants because it's in Texas.
Oh, for sure.
And he's a Texas guy, and lives there in the Dallas area. So he always wants to win. So I would lean Scotty. The prices now, if you're looking at the market, it's like I think minus 145 and then plus about $1.20 take back on Rory. That's really the market average. And a few weeks ago, it was about Rory getting like plus 160. So obviously the discount has happened since the Players Championship victory in the playoff over Spawn a couple weeks ago. So I think that now you're kind of getting a fair price on this matchup. It would be Scotty if I would take a matchup just because of the history, where I don't think, I'm just looking at my grid here, I don't think Rory's ever played on this course. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He has not. Okay. He's played at the other Houston Opens, but he's not played at this one. I'm with you, though. I like Scotty here, too, because it is a golf course that at the end of the day, before Scotty became world number one, he was a driver short game guy. That was where he really spiked. And so this is a golf course that suits that prototype Scotty mold. So I'm with Scotty. He should be motivated. Obviously, we're not going to bet the 3.5 to 1, but if I had to pick a matchup between the two, I would go with Scotty. Let's get into the odds board. We'll talk about this 28 to 35 range. We see this is a very, very, very funny odds board. We get 3-7 and down to 30. So Aaron Rai, Wyndham Clark, JJ, Tony Finau, Minwoo Lee, Mike Kim, J-Day, Davey T, Sung Jae. How many of these guys catch your eye? Anyone you're starting to look at in this range?
Maybe 1 to 2, and I'll talk about each of them, even though I haven't bet them necessarily. I understand why Rye is where he is.
Yep.
Rye,
Cool
seventh,
source.
each of the last 2 years. Finau, of course, even though Finau's not really in the best of form
No.
right now, so I may take a pass on that. Could regret it. Spawn, is going to get some attraction here because he's hitting the irons well, and he's got 2 runner-ups this year and a third. Of course, the last runner-up being the Rory at the Players. But, the two, J-Day and Minwoo Lee, I think kind of stood out to me a little bit. Jason, by the way, trying to get into the Masters. If you notice, his last start was at Bay Hill, where he's in the top 10. He was not in the Players. So
He withdrew because he was sick.
Oh, that's right.
And then he played, and then he played Sawgrass 2 days after with his friends. He posted on Instagram.
That's right.
Like, what are you doing?
That's
this
right.
Is hilarious.
Because and Day is one of those tricky players because sometimes like you kind of fall into the trap, man, where he gets a couple really good finishes in a row, and it's like, okay, man, here we go. He's about to pop here. He's about to hit, and then he gets sick or gets some kind of injury, and he finishes like 61st. So I've been down that rabbit hole a bunch. Minwoo, I just think, man, a guy that can really, we know he hits it long and he hits it all over the place too. But I don't think he's going to get penalized for that necessarily this week. So when I was running my numbers, just going through my stats here, guys putting the ball very darn well right now. And I think I was looking in terms of average per round of the guys in the field this week, he's like top 15 in terms of strokes gained putting average per round. He also is up there in strokes gained around green, 8th in the field, 14th in scrambling. So this is a guy, like you said, Matt, driver, putter, golf course. And I think 100%. Minwoo absolutely fits. So anything from that 28 to like 40 range, those were the two that I think really stood out to me. And I know people might go back to Michael Kim because he's been playing just so darn well and so darn consistent. And we know he's right outside that top 50, which this, by the way, is the last week. You have to get in the top 50 in the official world golf rankings after the Houston Open on Sunday to get that Masters invite if you aren't otherwise already qualified. I think Michael Kim certainly falls into that.
Yeah, I'm with you on Minwoo for sure. Like, I'm in the camp of Minwoo being one of the most unserious iron players in the world for how talented he is as a golfer. But like I said, this is a golf course where the driver short game is going to get rewarded, and he can give himself good – if he's – minting drives both long and straight, he's going to have such an advantage into the green, just with flip wedges and short irons. And then from there, it just becomes like, Minwoo can get extremely hot with around the green with the putting. And the last 4 weeks, like you said, he's really hitting the putter well, or putting well, and that's been a change. Because Minwoo was a great putter, but over the fall, it was putting horrifically. So I'm happy that he finally figured out that putter. We know he's going to drive it well. J-Day, I also wanted to take a look at, but I don't know if I could do the number. The field's not amazing, but I don't know if I could do the number for would I be if I pass on J-Day and he really hits, would I be that upset? Passing on a 30-1 J-Day, maybe not. So I'll probably pass there. And then Michael Kim and JJ Spawn, I'll tease to later. I think they're going to be great fades and matchup for the guys that are around them, because this is one of the most opposite courses you want these two guys on. JJ Spawn obviously almost won the Sony, almost won the Players, obviously won the Valero. So those are golf courses that are shorter, more positional. This is not that. This is not where you want JJ Spawn. And Mike Kim is kind of the same guy. They're going to be struggling in terms of driving distance this week. So I'm definitely with you on Minwoo Lee around 35-1. I don't think it's the worst number, even for a guy who's never won on the PGA Tour before, but we know what his overarching skill is. So I'm with you on Minwoo.
Yeah. I think playing him, I'll have him certainly. We were talking about proportioning. I'll have him on an outright, and then I'll have him also likely on a top 20 or something. Yeah. I usually live in the positionals and the placements. I usually live in that 20, 30, 40 range. Sometimes you got to go top 10s or top 5s when you get a signature event, when you've only got maybe 50, 60, 70 players in the field. Yeah, you've got to do that. But I typically reserve like top 5s and 10s for the elite guys like a Scotty. If I got to lay a little chalk, I will be willing to do it. But I'm typically living in that 20, 30, 40 range. So probably top 20 for Minwoo this week as well.
All right, let's go down to this 40 to 50, 55 range. We got Taylor Pendrith, Siwoo Kim, Jacob Bridges, Steven Yeager, defending champion, Maverick, Sahith, Smalley, Tommy Dietz, Ben Griffin. So this is an interesting range. Anyone here? I feel like this is going to be a popular range in some regard. Who do you like over here, if anyone?
Well, I had Bridgman last week, and he finished
Ooh.
third. Just couldn't quite, had that 3-putt where he hadn't like 3-putted all week. I think it was on like number 4 or number 5. Yeah, on the front 9. And I was like, well, we're done here. And then all of a sudden, he kind of made a little bit of a run back to the leaderboard, but then it became a 2-guy tournament, essentially, with Victor and JT, and Victor prevailing. But Bridgman is certainly in the form. I don't know if I want to go back to him necessarily. Smalley, he's going to pop on all your stats. Like, he really hasn't been in contention, but if you look, the ball striking has been really good. Like, he's just had a consistent run of form.
He's a great positional, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't think he could win, but great positional.
Yeah, I'm the same way because now I know he missed the cut last week, but if you look at Smalley, 14th, 18th, 30th, 21st, missed cut 11, 16, so pretty damn consistent when you've got almost 6 top 20 finishes in your last like 8 or 9 starts. So Smalley, I think, certainly will attract something. Probably not on an outright for me. I didn't know where to go because Sahith, I think, could fit this course, but I wonder, he played fairly solid to start out last week at the Valspar. Like, he's been terrible this year.
Yeah.
Sahith. He really has been all over the place, and he ended up like 36. So it's hard for me, but are people going to fall into that? Well, like Victor Hovland missed 3 cuts in a row and then all of a sudden figured it out. Like, does he figure it out here? Because I feel like Sahith really should fit this course. I think he was 6 here in 2021. Or no, I'm wrong. He's made the cut here all 3 times, but I feel like his game would fit because he's so creative around the greens, and he can hit it a long way, and he's a little all over the place, and the rough is not all that penal, but I need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually do like Sahith. I think it is. With him, it's never a form thing. I don't care what form he's in. I care about the number. When he starts to drift and he's around this 50+ range, especially in like a somewhat weaker field like it is here, I'm all the way in because he can pop in an instant at any time and even with great form, he can miss a cut in an instant. That's just how much of a volatile golfer he is. Get him on a course like Memorial Park where you can spray it a little bit and then lean into your creativity. I'm all the way in on Sahith. And then Maverick. Maverick, he did not play well the last 2 weeks, but he's the furthest from a Florida golfer I can imagine. He likes the West Coast. I know we're not on the West Coast. He likes the West Coast, but this is a driver putter golf course, and that's what Maverick is at the core. So I'm down for him. And then Bridgman, great call on you last week, but I think I'm going to fade him too. He's a Bermuda guy. He loves the Southeast. He's from South Carolina, and he's spoken about how comfortable he feels on Bermuda and how uncomfortable he feels on these other styles of golf course and other styles of grass at this point in his career. So I think he's still trying to learn this range. I really like Maverick and Sahith. Always got to give a shout out to Steven Yeager. Just love watching you swing 1,000 miles per hour. It's fun to watch. So Maverick and Sahith are my guys in this range. Let's go down a little bit.
Theegala, by the way, is getting bet in the matchup market. So there's some people I think that agree with you on this. And I never want to read too much into that, but I always do kind of want to look at, if guys are getting bet a little bit in the matchup market. Like you mentioned Day earlier, he's getting bet in the outrights, but yet he's getting faded in the matchup markets against like Thompson.
Davis Thompson. Okay, I was gonna say who's it against. That makes sense.
Yeah,
we didn't touch on Davis Thompson, but a guy who has a high end driver, Davis Thompson for sure. All right, let's get into the 60s. We'll do 60s, 70s, then we'll open it up down the board a little bit. So Grazerman, a quintessential driver putter. Keith Mitchell, unserious. Joey Buckets. So anyone down from 60 to 80 in this range on the screen that catches your eye?
Grazerman, for sure.
Grazerman.
Grazerman, that price has come down too. I think there's still
Yeah.
some 70 or 75 out there, but he was up near 100. But Grazerman is a guy that I think is going to make my outright card this week because the driver putter, of course, people remember him because he was right there battling with Aaron Rye, of course, at the Wyndham to finish the regular season last year. Aaron Rye ended up winning that. So, Grazerman look big here off the tee, really good with wedges too, especially if you get those short wedges. Now you look at some of the numbers of Grazerman this year on the PGA Tour, and it's like 130th off the tee, 97th on approach, basically a net zero on approach. So a lot of the stats aren't going to really pop for this guy, but he's a big bomber off the tee and a really good putter. And I think, he's a guy that can recover. And this is the thing about this course we've mentioned at Memorial Park. You can recover from bad shots here. And I think he's going to go well. He just really stood out to me, even though if you just purely, like most weeks when we're looking mainly at ball striking numbers, didn't pop off the page. But there's a lot of things this guy really does well for this place.
Yeah, Grazerman, he does fit the course, and like you're getting, remember like early on in the fall and early on in the season, he was like near the favorite to the odds award. So you're getting some drift. If he was in any form, he would be at that number. So I think it's a fair number. Obviously, the stats aren't great for Grazerman right now. He's kind of lost it with a driver, but he's on a course that does fit what he does well. So I think I'm with you there. I'm not sure if I'll get there, but I think it does make sense. I like Harry Hall down here, driver putter guy. He can really let it up on the greens and can bomb it. I really don't like this range too much. I mean, Jake Knapp and Patrick Rogers do make sense for the mold, but I think I'd take my shots with guys with similar win equity at like triple digits than these two guys. But I don't mind Harry Hall. I think Harry Hall 80-1 is a fair number. I'm sure there's better numbers elsewhere too.
There's some 100 out there, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Harry Hall would be my guy in this range for sure.
Yeah. No, he would. He kind of popped on a lot of the around the green and the scrambling and the putting as well. So he's probably at the bare minimum a placement market guy for me.
I like Nikolai Højgaard. I like Nikolai every single time, no matter what his form is, because he is when he's clicking, he's truly a top 10 player in the world, and he didn't fare too well in Florida. But I kind of like him on a golf course where there's no water and he could just send it because the dude just sends it. And then when he's hitting fairways and he can gain 10 strokes ball striking on any given week, has the talent. Like if I'm betting Nikolai Højgaard in perpetuity at 90-1 every week, I'm going to make money, and I know that for a fact. So I might just send it again because I've been betting him a ton. I'm down for Nikolai. Anyone around here, then we'll open it up down the board to whatever we like, triple digits.
Well, you mentioned the Great Dane, and you took the words right out of my mouth because the next thing I was going to say was Nikolai Højgaard, and you could still get 100-1 at a few places out there. He was on the card last week, didn't make the cut, just had a bad second round. It didn't start off too horribly on Thursday.
Yeah, he's 1 under.
Yeah, I look, another guy can hit the ball everywhere and can putt very well. I've been on him a couple times on the DP. Remember, this is the guy that won the DP World Tour Championship and looked Rory McIlroy in the eye and beat him.
Every single good player in the world he beat. John Rahm, Victor Hovland.
Yeah. So this is a guy that, with all the Europeans too that have been winning on the PGA Tour. Of course, Victor getting back in the winner's circle last week. It's going to be competitive to make that Ryder Cup team for Luke Donald, I think, this year. So, the Højgaards, really both the Højgaards, Nikolai and Rasmus. I think Nikolai popped a little bit more for me than Rasmus really the last few weeks. But these guys, look, now they're on the PGA Tour, so the win equity is going to be a little bit shorter because it's more competitive out here than being on the DP and playing all those events in the summer when you're the strongest guys in the field and you're always like 12 to 18-1 every single week because of your pedigree. So I like Nikolai here. He is just one of those guys that when he's hitting it well, he can compete with anybody out there, and he is very much a top 10 to 20, I think, caliber player, even if he's not ranked there right now. So Nikolai for me, and then I think around that same price, I looked a little bit, maybe Lee Hodges.
I do like Lee Hodges. I bet him so much early on in the season, but he he had a little injury, but I don't know really the details of what happened. But he's back now, so I assume he's okay. But Lee Hodges has picked up a ton of speed this season. He's won on a big boy golf, like not a big boy, a bigger golf course before, and he's popped already this season. I think I like that you said Lee Hodges because I might want to go back to him.
Yeah, because
Makes sense.
he's been out since Phoenix. But
Okay.
remember, to start the year, he was 10th at the Sony. He was
Yep.
9th at Torrey at the Farmers. So he has a little bit of form, but with that injury you mentioned, he has been out since Phoenix. So it maybe is a small placement, not an outright, but he's a guy that I think could definitely show here. It would not shock me to see him on the first page on Sunday.
Yeah, I like Lee. And honestly, like it's a great number. And if he was playing, he'd probably be around like 60-1, like playing all these weeks leading up. So I'm down. Let's get into some triple digits. List off like 2 to 3 guys in the triple digits that maybe, or however many you have, that maybe catch your eye, and then we'll circle back and give everyone a few outrights to start a card. So who do you like triple digits
Yeah.
anywhere from 100 to whatever?
Yeah, these aren't any I have played yet, but when I was going through my stats, just some guys that, in terms of numbers, did kind of appear frequently. Aldrich Potgieter at 150-1, who I'm still got some PTSD. I had him in Mexico, felt he should have won, and then Brian Campbell gets the bounce of his life and defeats the 20-year-old South African who's got a lot of pedigree. But Potgieter, look, nobody hits it longer. Maybe
No.
Bryson DeChambeau, and
Yep.
and that's it. And I mean, Aldrich is up there for Rory on driving distance and all that stuff, strokes gained off the tee. So he was a guy that I thought certainly could fit. Another big hitting European, Jesper Svensson, at 150-1. Remember, he won Singapore last year. Was his first major tour win, where he beat.
That was last week.
Yeah. He beat Barnrat last year in the playoff in the
Who
Singapore
could forget?
Classic. Yes, exactly. Right off the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So those two guys, I think in terms of like big hitters, I think some people will gravitate toward Nicholas Norgard as well. A lot of these European players that have come over and that are bigger hitters because now they have that status because they were in that top 10 ranking on the DP last year. So they can't get in every week, but they can get usually into most fields. So I think if you're looking this range, that's where you really want to look at a lot of your distance guys, because where you're solely looking at that, it's like, okay, who can really rip it out here? Kind of like what Toasty ended up being last year. So Potgieter, Norgard, we know, Minwoo and Rory are up there near the top. Jesper Svensson. So I think those guys, Stephen Fisk is another one. That's up there. Yeah, that's up there on driving distance. So that's where I think if you're betting the triple digits, that's the first thing you want to look at. Okay, who can really bomb it out here, because they're going to get shorter iron shots into the green.
Yeah, I have a take about Nicholas Norgard. I'm a fan of him. I like watching him. I'm a fan of all the Danish golfers and all the, we call them the Vikings, all those guys. But I honestly think for being 100-1, I think this is a bad number on Norgard. I think he should be double this number. I think he should be 200-1. And even on the DP World Tour, he's always priced up so high for no reason. Like he wouldn't get in the mix too often, but he'd play well. He obviously won I believe at the Belfry last year, but that was his only win. And when he did get to the lead, he would gag it every single time. Because I would be interested on like a Nick Norgard, like top 40 in this field on this golf course. I mean, I'm sure you can get it around maybe 3-1, but like there's no reason for him to be 100-1. I think he should be double this number. But some triple digits that I like, you mentioned some driving distance. How about Chris Gotterup? Chris Gotterup is not playing the best golf, but someone who can get it out there with Aldrich Potgieter is Gotterup. He's not playing, like I said, not playing the best, but this is a golf course that makes sense for him. And then these two guys right next to each other, Hayden Springer and Trey Mullinax, bring a very similar style of game to the table. They could bomb it out there and get hot with the putter. So maybe not outright, but those three, Springer, Trey, Gotterup, and then obviously everything that Wes said, can be great positional guys at triple digits. So those are my guys in the triple digits. You want to circle back to the top? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say Springer too. He played terrific at Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
So and I don't think that course is an exact facsimile. Like when you're looking at correlated courses, I don't know how much you do in that. I do that a little bit. I
No,
don't,
yeah, I do.
I don't become like a slave to it necessarily, but I think Torrey Pines, at least with the length, you could certainly make a case, kind of correlations all over the place this week. Southern Hills, Quail Hollow, I think made some sense. PGA National might have made a little sense for this week, Augusta as well. But, a guy that played well at Torrey Pines on the longest course on the tour certainly isn't a bad play here.
No, I mean, like, if you're on the leaderboard at Torrey Pines, that means you can drive the damn golf ball. So shout out Hayden Springer for that. So we'll go to the top. We'll each give 3 outrights, and not necessarily that we've clicked these guys yet, but potentially make the card. I'll start and maybe speak for both of us. I'll go with Minwoo around 35. I think we both talked about him. We think he's a great play for this style of golf course, driver putter. There's not many better golf courses for Minwoo's current style of game than that we see on the PGA Tour. Then Memorial Park, maybe 1 or 2 others. But I think this is a good number for a semi-weaker field outside of the top 2 on Minwoo, 35.
I'm also aboard Minwoo Lee, so make it 2 for 2. I think this is where he can absolutely pop. He's the guy that we saw him. Was it last year or the year before where he had that great final round at Augusta? I think it might have been 2 years ago.
Yeah,
where he
was like 6 under on the front 9 or something like that.
Yeah. So Minwoo will be a popular guy. Well, if he wins, obviously he won't be that price, but he'll be one of those longer shot guys when everybody's looking for that long shot at Augusta. I think he'll be popular. Minwoo aboard for me. Mid 30 range. If you could find a 40, obviously take that, but I think those are being gobbled up.
Yeah. So, all right, you give the next pick. I don't want to steal it if we're on the same guy. So, who is your second potential outright?
Yeah, let's go with Max Grazerman. Best I'm seeing, I think 60 is like the consensus, but there are some 70s I think you can grab out there. Struggled a little bit on the West Coast. Remember, he was a rookie on the PGA Tour last year, but this is where he kind of started last year to kind of show some flashes.
Right.
And you started to see him on some more leaderboards last year. He was 7th here. His first top 10 was at this event. And ended in the top 50 last season. 11th at the Cognizant, 22nd at Bay Hill. That's not great, but that's certainly a progress from where he was last year. I'm not worried about him missing the cut at the Players. Everybody misses cuts at the Players, right, including the guy that just won the darn thing for the second time, Rory McIlroy. So his strength is on the greens. He's not going to get in as much trouble off the tee, as we mentioned earlier. Of course, runner up at the Zozo. So he can score on these par 5s, and the par 5s are not as easy as they are most weeks here. So I think he could take advantage of that. So Max Grazerman for me.
All right, I'll go with a guy we did not mention, change it up a little bit, but he is the ultimate driver putter. He's a guy who did not know how to win until he won one of the highest dog events of the year. That's Thomas Dietrich. Thomas Dietrich played well here last year. I don't know if he can potentially go runner-up or runner-up win, because that's a lot to ask for. But I think it's if this number drifts a little bit, I'd probably be 100% in. But I'm definitely considering him around 55-1, a guy who can bomb it off the tee and get scorching hot with the putter. And then if he proved to do it on Sunday in one of the toughest conditions, like in terms of pressure. So I don't see why he can't do it here. Thomas Dietrich, 55-1. And who is your final outright selection?
Yeah, and there's a couple other ones I didn't mention. A couple of these Europeans at triple-digit odds. Jesper Svensson, probably at least be a placement. Victor Perez, I think another one to look at. Victor Perez, by the way, did play his college golf here near the state. So Victor Perez would be one I would consider. But I'm going to go with Nikolai. I'm going to give Nikolai another shot here. He just popped on so many numbers in these stats that I look at this week. Not just necessarily off the tee and then the proximity from 200 plus. He's top 15 in this field in bogey avoidance. So I think that's going to be important. He was top 10 in three putt avoidance this week. Birdie or better. He was really solid. And then Strokes gained putting like top 20 in this field. So I think with the short game, he's been very good. And if he could just, kind of keep it somewhat in between the lines, even though you're not going to get punished if you go too far off track. But 6 on approach too, by the way. Only I think in this field, I think only Spahn, Norlander, Jackson Suber, Nick Taylor, and Scotty Scheffler, who are always usually good approach guys, were better than Nikolai in this field this week. So Nikolai Højgaard, 100-1, I think market average right now.
Yeah, and you're not going to find a guy at like 90 to 100-1 who has the ability to gain like 10 strokes ball striking. Like he truly has that skill set. So you're getting a massively high ceiling. I think he's a much better outright selection than he is like a matchup because he's a volatile guy. So take that shot on Nikolai. I'm with you there. So I'm going to skip to my positional of the week. I'm going to go with Chris Ventura. He's 250-1, probably some bigger numbers elsewhere, but you're going to get a nice positional, probably around 6-1, maybe 4-1 on a top 40. And if you want to get deeper, go to a top 20. But Chris Ventura is a heavy ball hitting, bombing Norwegian, following his good friend Victor. Maybe from last week, a little bit confident.
Narrative Street.
Yeah.
Both Norwegians, both Oklahoma State Cowboys. So
yeah, hell yeah. So they're used to playing in this area of the country. Obviously went to college in Oklahoma. So Chris Ventura, he is coming. He was on the PGA Tour, went to the DP World. I'm sorry, went to the Korn Ferry, got his card, and now he's back again and looks as confident as he's been. He hasn't really broken through. He was in the mix, I believe, one time. I forget which event that was. A few weeks back, he popped a little bit in the leaderboard. But I'm not saying he's going to win, but I think there's a great golf course for him to make a cut and cash you a positional. So that's Chris Ventura, around 250-1.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I had him on my Mexico card a few weeks ago, and yeah, he was up there. I think he ended up like top 15, kind of fell a little bit back. That's
probably
Sunday.
Where it was then, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of a placement for me, I think Jesper Svensson is going to enjoy this. So he is going to be one of those ones that I play top 30s, top 40s on, that you're going to get a decent size plus price on. So he will be my kind of longer shot placement market this week. But I do all my placement stuff usually on Wednesday. And I live, like I say, for those that don't follow or haven't followed me before, 20, 30, 40 range is basically where I live with these guys.
All right, my matchup of the week, I mentioned it at the top. I'm going to be fading. I don't want to give it a specific matchup. JJ and Michael Kim. Fade them in whoever you can find, because I don't mind any of these guys to really fade them with in a full tournament matchup. Hell, if you want to throw a round one matchup, be my guest. But I'm going to stick to the tournament matchups, fading Michael Kim and JJ Spawn. Just think this is a horrible golf course for them. And then you add in their odds where they are. They're going to be paired up with guys who make much more sense around Memorial Park. So fading JJ and MK this week. Who is your matchup of the week?
Yeah, looking at this, Jesper Svensson is matched up with Ryo Hisatsuni, if I didn't butcher that name. Ryo, of course, was on the first page of the leaderboard. I think he was like third from the last group, and actually had a very solid finish. So Jesper is about, I think, minus 105, and I think it's minus 115. Like yeah. So I thought that price was fair. So we'll likely be playing that one. And then another guy, I was trying to look at another guy that I wanted to maybe fade in the matchups. A guy that could be a sneaky matchup play is Mackenzie Hughes, who you would not think
he likes
fits.
It here.
Yeah, he has played great here, even though he's not a really big hitter, but he's one of the best short game guys in the world. And I think that's where it's like, okay, he's going to have a couple chip ins off the greens, and that's going to make up a ton on the field. So I'd like to use Mackenzie Hughes. I don't know about to win, but I think that's a guy you definitely could target in the matchups. Really good form, like we mentioned, 14th, 16th, 29th. Was 7th in 2020. Remember, there was an event, by the way, if you're looking at form in 2023, because they were playing this in the fall, and then this went away, and then they had to get the sponsorship all settled down there with Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, kind of bailing out the tournament. So if you're looking at that, that's why that there wasn't an event in 2023.
Yeah, this, and also to back up off of that, this is you looking at the course history. You mentioned don't look too far back because the courses have changed. And even with the event at Memorial Park, it used to be played in the fall. And when it moved to this time of in the calendar, it even made the distance bias even way stronger. So I think just key in on that driving distance, key in on that driver putter build, because when it was in the fall, it played a lot differently. And also
Yeah.
with Rio Hisatane, he makes all of his hay on these shorter positional golf courses or Bermuda. This is not that. So I really like that fade. And Mackenzie Hughes, when he's playing well, it's usually on golf courses that require you to hit a lot of long irons and great short game outside of the RSM Classic, of course. But I back everything you said right there. I might tell you on some of those.
One of the changes also from the fall, Matt, you mentioned about the driving bias. The agronomy is completely different because it was Bermuda. Now you get POA overseed on the green. So it's not quite in Florida where you start seeing the Bermuda this time of year creep back in. But the biggest switch was the Bermuda rough is now, half as short and it's rye overseed. So it's a lot easier to kind of chop out of that. Greens are going to be 12.5 on the stimp like they always are. Weather, did you really see anything? I think we're going to get some rain on Friday. I think we're going to get some delays.
I didn't see anything too crazy in terms of like it could alter the event or like make a split, but I did see some rain. So maybe that just makes you have to hit it a little further, but nothing crazy where I'm just like changing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Could be soft like on Thursday, Friday, but then over the weekend, because you're gonna get the temps in the mid to high 80s over the weekend, so that'll dry out really quick. So I don't think it'll be soft all 4 days. It'll play a little firmer and faster Saturday and Sunday, like it usually does.
I agree. Well, that wraps it up. Wes, thank you for joining me. Tell the people where they could find you. Great conversation about the Memorial.
No, I'm glad to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me on. You can follow me on the Twitter, the X, whatever the hell it's called, at Wes Reynolds, and then the number 1 on the end of my name. Instagram, Hoosier West 77. That's more of a personal account. So I'm not a big Instagrammer. I'm trying to be Matt, and get into that a little bit more, but mainly on the tweets or the X's at Wes Reynolds and the number 1, and then the write-ups, of course, are at vsin.com. Column usually for golf comes out about late Tuesday afternoon, very early Tuesday evening on the East Coast.
Beautiful. Well, Wes, one of the sharpest minds in the golf space. Thank you again for coming on. Great conversation. And you guys know, any questions, hit us up. And thank you for listening. I'll catch you guys Monday for the DFS show. Peace.